Hi, good evening. My name is Sarcoidosis. I'm a board member with Life and Breath Foundation. I'll be the guest host tonight, sitting in for Sean Hull, the president of Life and Breath, who has a prior commitment with his family. Welcome to our speaker series for the month of November. Before I introduce our speaker for tonight's session on organizing your anti-inflammatory kitchen, I'd like to provide a brief overview on Life and Breath Foundation's primary goals. The goals are to offer the sarcoidosis community effective tools to track their journey, decipher medical issues, and maximize their quality of life, to provide a nurturing environment for those affected by sarcoidosis to share their experiences, to build more awareness within the medical community to help combat this chronic disease. Tonight's session will be recorded and available throughout our website, lifeandbreath.org. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, Dr. Monisha Bhanote. Dr. Bhanote has been a frequent and popular speaker here at Life and Breath. She is and has been an invaluable resource to us during her years here with us. She is the founder and CEO of Holistic Wellbeing Collective. She is exceptionally knowledgeable as the only quintuple board certified physician in the United States with expertise in integrative medicine, anatomic and clinical pathology, cytopathology, breast, bone, and soft tissue cancer, functional medicine, and a certified culinary medicine specialist. As always, we have to include the following disclaimer. The content provided in the speaker series is for informational and educational purposes only and does not substitute professional medical advice or consultations with healthcare professionals. Please submit your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom. Dr. Bhanote will try to answer as many questions as time permits. Without further ado, please help me welcome Dr. Monisha Bhanote.
Thank you so much, Saul, and the Life and Breath Foundation for having me back with the Life and Breath speaker series this evening. And tonight we are going to talk about organizing your anti-inflammatory kitchen. So when we begin there, we just are going to do a very, very brief overlook at inflammation. I think from the number of speaker series we've had, we kind of have an understanding. So very briefly, inflammation is a normal part of our body's immune defenses. And when we have acute inflammation that we might see when we have a bruise or swelling or some kind of injury, that actually is a positive response. The type of inflammation that we do not want and that we want to lower in all aspects possible is chronic inflammation. And that is because chronic inflammation can lead to serious health issues such as heart disease, cancer, lower respiratory disease, arthritis, Alzheimer's, and stroke, just to name a few. Now, people can definitely keep inflammation at bay by avoiding certain inflammatory triggering foods. Some of these might include processed meat, added sugar, and saturated fats. But in addition to knowing what we want to minimize, we should also be looking at what foods we can eat to help lower that inflammation. And you might already be incorporating a lot of these foods in your diet. And if not, there are many ways to incorporate them. So we're going to focus on what you want to incorporate in your diets this evening. So what turns on the inflammatory response when it comes to inflammation? Now, this is things that include increasing inflammation. And if you hear that noise behind me, that I have a one-year-old puppy that's found a toy to play with. So I apologize for that. But things that increase inflammation include refined starches, and I'll go into what these starches are, sugar, saturated fats, trans fats, and also a diet that's low in fruits, low in vegetables, and low in grains, whole grains specifically, and one low in omega-3 fatty acids. So all of that is going to contribute to that inflammatory response. And that has been studied by the Journal of American College of Cardiology has studied that. So now, what are some of our strategies to calm inflammation? So there is a growing body of evidence that links particular foods and eating patterns with a lower level of inflammatory biomarkers. So those are the biomarkers that your physician can check, like C-reactive protein and interleukins. So there have been studies done that demonstrate that they would be lowered in when people have particular diets. Now, there is also experts believe that diet and the inflammation have a very strong connection, and that's why we are going to focus on the diet. Now, let's take inventory. What I would like you to do is, if you have near you, take out a pen or paper, or even a phone to do some screenshots of the foods that we're going to talk about, because I always like to take it from a perspective with my clients that let's focus on what we can bring into the diet to lower inflammation, and then you'll naturally crowd out the other foods that contribute to inflammation, because there's only so much you can eat in a day. So as I go through each of these categories, what I want you to do is write down how many of these categories and the foods in them that you might have eaten today. Now, there's no judgment here. This is just really an awareness exercise, because if we are not aware of what we are putting in our body, it's very hard for us to even understand that there's space for change or space for improvement or space that we can help lower our inflammation. And the goal really is that you do 1% better tomorrow. So if, for example, today you only had one vegetable, well, tomorrow do a little bit better and try and have 2 vegetables. So don't be so hard on yourself, because this is a learning curve. This is not, you're going to wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden be a 100% anti-inflammatory diet person. And I really don't like to use the word diet, even though that's what it is, but this is more of focusing on what nutrition is and what your body requires. So with that being said, this is what the anti-inflammatory diet looks like. There is a anti-inflammatory diet food pyramid, and we are going to break down all of these levels and revisit this pyramid at the end, but we'll start at the bottom with the vegetables and fruits and how many of those you should be having a day, whole grains, pasta, beans, legumes, healthy fats, fish and shellfish if you eat it, whole soy foods, cooked Asian mushrooms, other sources of protein, healthy herbs and spices, tea, supplements, red wine, and healthy sweets are all part of the anti-inflammatory diet. So when it comes to vegetables, you want to have 4 to 5 a day minimum. Now, with the standard American diet, many people are only getting in about 2 vegetables a day. And one of those 2 happens to be potatoes, white potatoes, in the standard American diet. So you really want to focus on having a variety of colors, a variety of different vegetables. So here's just a list of a few of them. So what I would focus on is which one of these you like first. So if there's ones that you have a particular affinity to, eat those. Now, there is a caveat here, is that there is going to be a little presence here for this, so sorry about that, but there's caveat about nightshades, and nightshades might include eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, potatoes. Now, the ingredient in there is solanine that has an effect on inflammation, but there isn't really research to support that fully. What it is that individuals actually experience a food sensitivity to these things. So if you find that you are having a food sensitivity to these, you might benefit from removing them from your diet. So those would be nightshades such as eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, potatoes. And what I would recommend you do is, if you're suspect that they are affecting you, take them out of your diet completely and introduce one at a time back into your diet after a period of 4 weeks, and see how you feel then. And then you may be able to determine if they are affecting you. So like I said, 4 to 5 a day is a minimum when it comes to the anti-inflammatory diet. So if you're just at that 1 or 2 for the day, you have space for improvement. Now, next on that list is fruits. So those are about 3 to 4 a day. And I've divided it into low sugar and high sugar foods. So if you are dealing with some kind of other health issue in addition to sarcoidosis, you might want to be focused on more on the low sugar fruits. And those would be our lemons, limes, all our berries, kiwi, grapefruit, avocado, watermelon, cantaloupe, and peaches would be in that category. And so if you see that you're supposed to have about 4 to 5 servings of vegetables a day and 3 to 4 fruits a day, that makes your total almost 10 for the day. And that's kind of where I like that easy number to land is think about trying to get 10 fruits or vegetables for the day. And I should more say 10 vegetables and fruit, more vegetables than fruit, of course. Now, here's some tips when it comes to vegetables and fruit. Like I said, you want to go with more vegetables than fruits and put an emphasis on plant food and those with a lower glycemic load. And what I mean by lower glycemic load is that low sugar end of it. We want to eat a variety and as many colors as you can in the rainbow. I often have people put that pyramid that I just showed you on their refrigerator. So when they're hungry at the end of the night and they're thinking about, oh, what can I eat? And they realize they haven't even eaten an entire food group, it gives them a chance to add some more nutrients to their day. Consider organic when possible. Also consider in-season items because those are generally cheaper and they can be more nutrient rich because they are just freshly picked from being in season. Another thing that I like to do is consider frozen foods. Frozen foods can be very beneficial and cost effective and also time effective. And the comparable price when it comes to organic frozen vegetables and non-organic is pretty similar. And that way you're not having vegetables that go bad in your refrigerator so quickly because you forgot to eat them. So they can be readily available and they have nutrients in them because they're frozen at the appropriate time. So consider frozen. And then another way to do this is to add a smoothie in the morning. Actually, I have a smoothie recipe that I'm going to show you next. So how to consider your smoothie for the morning. Now, this is a morning smoothie that I do, and it's basically spinach, cucumber, celery, a handful of cilantro. Right now I had pineapple because it was in season. I will sometimes alternate the pineapple with half a green apple instead, but I do add some extra nutrients in there like ground flaxseed and hemp seed for the added benefit of the omegas. So I actually made a little video for you to show you how easy it is and that this can be done in under a few minutes. And now I've already got about 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 servings of my fruit and vegetables for the day. And remember I said you want to get 10. So with one smoothie, I've already made some progress here. Then next is our category of whole grains. And many people, you know, there's some misinformation out there about grains and carbs and how you want to stay away from carbs, but technically we need grains and carbs to help remove toxins for our body. They help carry it away. It's the fiber that helps carry it away. So some of the grains that I recommend are Amarnath and quinoa. Both of them are complete proteins, meaning they have all the amino acids. But then we also have brown rice, farro, kamut, quinoa, spelt, wheat berries, whole wheat pasta. And the recommendation in the anti-inflammatory diet is to have 3 to 5 of these a day. So what might this look like? This might look like maybe steel cut oats in the morning for breakfast. This might look like maybe a whole wheat wrap for lunch, and for dinner, a quinoa and brown rice bowl. So pretty straightforward to get it in if you're including these nutrients. Then next is pasta. So pasta, if you do eat pasta, you want to have it at most 1 to 2 times a week. And you want to consider more of the whole grain pasta rather than the white pastas. And that would be brown rice, quinoa, spelt, chickpea, mung bean. There's so many varieties available now, but you're definitely going to get more nutrition from incorporating this kind of pasta in. And then beans and legumes. That's also another one that there's a lot of fiber and nutrients in there, and that's 1 to 2 a day. And that might look like chickpeas, black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, mung beans, yellow lentils. Chickpeas, you can do that as a hummus, as a snack. So that's a nice way of getting that in. Black bean tacos. You can make a 3-bean chili. So many ways to incorporate this. Lentil soup, now that it's gotten colder, is another way. Now, why am I so focused on grains? Because they are not the enemy, even though we have been kind of misled to believe it. What we do want to stay away from is refined grains. So what's the difference here between a whole grain and a refined grain? And that would look like, so there's 3 components when it comes to a grain. We have an outer layer, which is the bran. And that bran is a fiber-filled layer that provides complex carbohydrates, minerals, B vitamins, which get removed in that processing. We also have this inner layer called the germ that is also packed with B vitamins, E vitamins, phytochemicals, healthy fats that gets, once again, removed during the processing. So when we have white bread, white pasta, white crackers, bagels, pastries, all this stuff, it's a refined grain that basically what's mostly left is this starchy carb layer with a little bit of protein. And what happens there is refined grains are linked to diseases. And what are they linked to? They're linked to weight gain. They're linked to type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, inflammation, blood sugar spikes, acne, eczema, allergies, mood swings, difficulty concentrating, bloating, and bone loss. So when everyone thinks to avoid carbs and grains, I could understand why, but it's the refined part that you really need to avoid, because having a whole grain in your diet actually fights disease. It lowers total cholesterol, LDL, and triglycerides. It reduces heart disease. It helps you lose weight. It also provides for digestive health, and digestion is a cornerstone of us developing a lot of our health issues. So you really want to have a strong digestion. It's rich in fiber. It helps prevent cancer, keeps you full longer, and is nutrient dense and a source of protein. So if I haven't convinced you yet, whole grain tips. So whole and cracked grains are generally good choices. And this is not to be confused with whole wheat or whole grains on packaging. You should be able to see the grains. So if your bread looks like this, where you actually have the grains in the bread, then you're getting more of these grains. Pastas, like I said, should be on occasion and not a daily part of the diet. You also want to eat it al dente, because that will help lower that glycemic load, so that that sugar spike. And once again, consider brown rice or lentil pasta. You can also add a dash of vinegar to dishes, because this is a way to help lower that glycemic load. Include high fiber cereal grains as a low cost, and it's a very accessible dietary change. And then another way of increasing that fiber, as I've already mentioned, is berries and beans. So now let's move on to the next category. That's also something that people have taken out of their diets, which is healthy fats. Now, we had this time where everything was turned into low-fat foods and low-fat dairy, low-fat crackers, low-fat yogurts, all this thing, but it got replaced by other things that we didn't want, like sugars and chemicals and whatnot. So when we're talking about the fats that we do want 5 to 7 servings of fat a day. And the fats I want you to focus on are the anti-inflammatory omega-3 rich fats, and they are more predominantly found in olive oil, avocados, walnuts, pistachios, any seeds, so pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, hemp seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, almonds, cashews. So nuts and seeds is a good source. Avocados is a good source, olive oil. Now, what we want is a variety here. So if all you're used to eating is almonds, I would recommend trying to increase that variety by adding maybe a different type of nut or maybe some seeds, just to add more nutrients, because these foods aren't just composed of that one component. They have other nutrients in there. Pumpkin seeds are very high in magnesium. So I just want you to realize the variety is a significant part of our diet. So now, what's the deal with oil, right? So when you have oil, it's never just composed of one type of fat. Instead, they're made up of a variety of fats. And the way they're classified is based off of their predominant fat. So in the case of monounsaturated fatty acids, which is the one that we want, it's going to be olives, avocado, canola, almond, and peanut oils, preferably olive oil. The next one would be saturated fats. That would be the coconut and palm oil. So if you, it's not really my favorite to use the coconut and palm oils. I really only cook with olive oil. You do have omega-3 polyunsaturated fat oils, such as flaxseed oil. Now, you don't want to cook with flaxseed oil. It is beneficial, but you want to use this more cold. So maybe this is something you want to drizzle on a salad or something like that, used a little bit differently. The ones that you want to stay away from are the omega-6 polyunsaturated oils. And those are our vegetable oils like corn, soybean, grapeseed, safflower, sunflower, hemp, walnut, and cottonseed. Now, with that, most of the food that is cooked in restaurants is cooked in this omega-6 polyunsaturated oils, and that's because it is cheaper for restaurants to use that. So when you eat out, the same dish that you could make at home, you're going to probably have more exposure to inflammatory oils. And so where's the benefit when it comes to olive oil? It was recommended in 30 studies that having about 1 milligram to 50 milligrams can reduce your C-reactive protein and interleukin 6, which are markers of inflammation. So to me, when we go back to how many fats, that might look like 3 teaspoons of olive oil, a serving of avocado, and a serving of nuts for the day would give you your 5. Maybe if you had another extra serving of seeds. So quite easy, once again, to get those healthy fats in. Now, next on the anti-inflammatory diet is fish and shellfish. Now, if you choose to eat fish and shellfish 2 times a week is the recommendation. And you do want to be focused on which type of fish. So you want the cold water fish like salmon, cod, halibut. Also, a good thing to keep in mind is where you're getting your fish from, where you're sourcing it from. Also, if you have elevated levels of mercury in your body, you may not want to add fish to your diet. So that's always something you may want to test with your physician, because when we have heavy metals in our diet, it can slow down our body's processing to remove other toxins. So the tips around fat, you want to have the EPA and DHA, and those are the components that we're focused on that's in the cold water fish, such as salmon, sardines, albacore tuna. You want to have the omega-3 fatty acids that's also found in plant sources, so that would be in your walnuts. Fish oil supplements also have data to support an anti-inflammatory effect. So talk to your physician about possibly adding a fish oil to your regimen. And once again, the monounsaturated fats were the olive oils, the olives, nuts, seed, avocado. So they are calorie dense. So you do want to be focused on the serving size with these, and use olive oil as your main cooking oil. Now, next on the anti-inflammatory diet is soy foods. And the soy foods that, when I talk about having 1 to 2 servings a day, we are talking about edamame, non-GMO tofu, and, oh, I'm sorry, I left that out, and non-GMO soy milk. And they found that consuming soy has been shown to reduce those inflammatory markers once again, the interleukins and the C-reactive protein. Additionally, the Journal of Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that soy products have a marked anti-inflammatory effect. And it's believed because of the components of the phytoestrogens or omega-3s found in soy products. So these do not include your soy chicken nuggets or soy hot dogs or fake soy. This is basically edamame, which you can actually buy organic frozen edamame in the grocery store and just steam that up, and it makes for a great snack. Tofu, non-GMO tofu, and soy milk are pretty readily available. Now, I have a recipe that I make quite often, which includes a lot of anti-inflammatory ingredients. These are my veggie spring rolls. So with this, what I do is I make a spring roll that's composed of grilled tofu, and it was grilled in olive oil. I add cucumbers, avocados, cilantro, radishes, mixed greens to the rice noodle and rice wrap, and basically eat it with a peanut or nut butter dipping sauce. So once again, a super light, fresh, easy meal to add. Now, mushrooms. Okay, so the next thing on the anti-inflammatory diet is Asian mushrooms, and those are unlimited. So there is no limit to how many mushrooms you can have a week. And when I'm talking about the mushrooms, I'm talking about the Asian ones like shiitake, anake, maitake, reishi, and lion's mane. I am not talking about the baby bellas, portobellas, bellas. To me, the way I always explain it to my clients is that the portobellas and baby bellas are like the Ford of a mushroom, or maybe the Toyota. They're reliable, but they don't really have the extra power and immune boosting benefits that Asian mushrooms have. So think of Asian mushrooms like your Tesla or your Audi or whatever your favorite car is. Shiitake is now very readily available in many grocery stores. And what's good about shiitake is that it can help reduce cholesterol levels, and it contains beta glucans that help reduce inflammation, thereby supporting immune health. So that's a good one to pick up. And then if you're near any farmers markets, farmers markets will have enoke, which are white mushrooms. They're really good in soups and salads. Also has immune boosting effects. Maitake is anti-cancer, antiviral, immune boosting, can also help with blood pressure, blood sugar levels. Reishi is considered a medicinal mushroom, not a culinary one. So this one has anti-inflammatory effects and can help protect the liver. This one is sometimes used more in a tea. So you will find reishi more in a tea. And then lion's mane is really good if you're experiencing Say you have neurosarcoidosis and you're experiencing some cognitive issues. Well, lion's mane is very helpful to help with nerve growth, and it can improve mild cognitive impairment. So, and lion's mane you can have both in a powdered form, and you can find this at the farmer's market to eat. It's quite tasty. And then when it comes to other sources of protein, so this one is always the challenge for individuals to change, because the recommendation in the anti-inflammatory diet is 1 to 2 times a week of other sources of protein. So what does that look like? That looks like dairy, cheese, yogurt, milk, lean meats, and chicken and eggs 1 to 2 times a week. Whereas many people are eating that 3 times a day. So if you think about it, 3 times a day times 7 days in the week, they're eating it about 21 times, anywhere from 14 to 21 times a week, which is a contributing factor to chronic disease due to many reasons, including the inflammatory effects and saturated fats in these foods. Now, as I already mentioned, for other sources of protein, you can consider wild fish. You can also consider plants. They are a really good source of protein. Nuts and legumes are really a good source of protein. And ultimately, we want protein to be about 15% of our overall daily diet consumption. And the way you can calculate that is according to your body weight in kilograms. You want to times your body weight in kilograms by 0.8 grams. And that will give you your amount of protein consumption. So in an average female, that might look like 46 grams. Average male, that might look like about 52 to 54 grams. It varies if you are an athlete or if you are pregnant. You might increase that, but on average, 0.8 grams per kilogram is a good way to calculate that. And then next, well, you also have healthy herbs and spices, which that once again is unlimited. So what that might look like is your basil, cilantro, dill, parsley, all these herbs. You can have rosemary, saffron, sage, so many of them. As for the ones that have research behind them to lower inflammation, ginger can lower C-reactive protein and tumor necrosis factor alpha. Garlic has a lot of benefits due to its allicin component and also has anti-inflammatory benefits. Numerous studies have shown the benefit of turmeric because it blocks the activation of something called NF-kappa beta factor, which is a molecule that promotes inflammation. So it's able to block that. Therapeutic ways of getting turmeric is really through capsule form to get the real therapeutic, but that does not mean you don't need to add some of the components in your home cooking. Cardamom also can reduce inflammatory markers such as C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor, and MDA. And the thing about cardamom is that it can actually raise antioxidants, and antioxidants are in our fruits and vegetables. They're in our vitamins, and those antioxidants help fight the free radicals and fight cellular damage and basically fight disease. So cardamom can be used in a tea brew, in your homemade baked goods is a way to use it. And then you also have rosemary. And rosemary has a lot of polyphenols, which can help lower inflammation. And cinnamon is a great alternative to a sweetener because cinnamon can help lower C-reactive protein levels. But you do want to keep your cinnamon to about no more than 1 teaspoon a day. And then we have tea. So the recommendation is to have 2 to 4 cups a day, black, green, or white. Preferably green has the most nutrients, but all of them have polyphenols, catechins, epicatechins that have anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. White tea has the least amount of caffeine. Herbal tea has no caffeine. So herbal tea is usually a blend of herbs, spices, fruits. You might be familiar with chamomile or peppermint, robios, ginger, hibiscus are all herbal teas. Green tea is really high in flavonoids and anti-inflammatory factors. And black tea yet is still good, but it is the most caffeinated. Oolong tea is kind of in between a white and black tea. And the interesting thing about oolong tea is it contains a component called L-theanine. And L-theanine is an amino acid that helps reduce anxiety and increase alertness and attention. So that might be one that you want to look at if you haven't tried that before. And then the last two things on the anti-inflammatory food pyramid are supplements daily. And when it comes to supplements, I always recommend to consider talking to your physician about them, because targeted supplementation is what I prefer, which means you actually test your blood levels to see how much of each component you have, so you know your needs, so you're not overdoing it, you're not underdoing it. Our body requires a balance and homeostasis, so you always want to run your supplements by your physician. And then lastly, we look at sweets and dark chocolate, and you want to use that sparingly. So then when we go back to the food pyramid, we have pretty much gone through all of these with a focus on as much fruits and vegetables as you can, include in the whole grains, beans and legumes, definitely healthy fats. Mushrooms and herbs and spices are unlimited. So you can see that many people, where our diet is focused in this other sources of protein, or even things that aren't even on this pyramid, is where we have quite a bit of focus on our diet, and that does contribute to inflammation. So what does your anti-inflammatory plate look like? When I want you to imagine your plate, I want you to see half of that plate full of vegetables and fruits. And then maybe another quarter, a little bit more than a quarter with your whole grains, and then your healthy fats, legumes, and all that stuff in the corner. And if you do choose to have that other source of protein like dairy, meat, think of it more as a condiment in the side here than your main plate. Lastly, two things I want to talk about when it comes to setting up your kitchen is non-toxic food storage. So if you can avoid plastic at all costs, even BPA-free plastic, and focus on storing your food in glass, silicone, stainless steel, or ceramic containers. Now, do realize that there is microplastics that are present in the water supply. There's microplastics in fish. And they enter our body through ingestion or inhalation, and they can also impact our health, including inflammation, oxidative stress, many, many things. So, and ultimately impair our immune system. So if there's any way not to bring more in, focus on what you can, which is the containers that you put your own food in. And then also pots and pans. So when it comes to what kinds of pans to cook in, stainless steel is pretty readily available, and is probably, since it's the most readily available and cost effective, you can go with a high quality stainless steel. You want to look at the bottom to see if it has a stamp on it saying 18.8 or 1810, which will give you the component of nickel versus chromium. Cast iron is generally safe. If you can find an enamel coated cast iron, which is a glass coating, that can help, because then the iron doesn't leach into your food. Now, if you have low iron levels, for whatever reason, you might want to cook with cast iron. Glass, lead-free ceramic, and copper are other alternatives for cooking. What I do want you to avoid is non-stick cookware. And we love our non-stick cookware because it makes nothing stick and it just makes things easier. The problem with non-stick cookware is that it contains PFCs and other chemicals, which have been linked to elevated cholesterol, abnormal thyroid levels, liver inflammation, and a weakened immune system. So I always say control what you can, and these are the things that you can bring into your household. So lastly, I do want to show you one more recipe, which is my favorite way of making, well, more like replacing granola bars and replacing energy bars and protein bars, is a homemade anti-inflammatory energy bite. And what this is a combination of your favorite nuts, seeds, gluten-free oats, dried fruits, nut butter, and you can combine. The recipe is available on my website, but let me just show you how easily you can make this with as many anti-inflammatory ingredients. And this is really fun to make with the family and the kids, and store it for the entire week. And you've got a great snack that is full of nutrients, basically, and you know exactly what you put in it. So super easy to do. One of my favorite, really. So you can find that recipe on my website. And then just to summarize, so what are the top 10 recommendations when it comes to the anti-inflammatory diet? Number one is to cut down on products made with flour and sugar, including whole wheat flour. Avoid sweetened beverages. Master a few recipes made with fresh ingredients that are easy to prepare and taste really good. Eat more vegetables of all colors. Cook at lower temperatures, including baking and grilling, and do more steaming instead. Having a double broiler that's has a larger steam basket is a really good way to do that, because you can throw an entire bag of frozen vegetables in there, steam it up, and then make your favorite dressing from it. And one of the dressings that, or it's not really a dressing, it's more of a herb sauce that I didn't tell you about that I like, is I think because I don't have a video of it, but it's super simple. What it is you take your favorite herb. So if your favorite herb is parsley or cilantro or basil, whichever one it is, you take a handful of that, 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, and a 1/4 cup of olive oil, put it in the blender, and you've made a green sauce, which if you put that over any of these vegetables, your vegetables are definitely going to taste better. And then the other trick is, once you've made that sauce, if you're like, I don't want to eat it for a couple of days, stick it in ice cube trays. And then when you're ready to cook later on in the week, you can take it out and you have an easy way to start your meal. So that's a way to cook with steamed vegetables and have them taste good. Now, as I mentioned before, whole grains you do want to include. So experiment with the ones that you like, maybe quinoa, farro, buckwheat, barley, wild rice. Get rid of any of your Teflon coated pans. Consider non-stick cookware, the ceramic. Consider adding turmeric powder to soup, stews, and bean dishes is an easy way to get that turmeric powder in. Look for extra virgin olive oil that has a anti-inflammatory component, and practice eating mindfully with full attention to the experience. And we will discuss this in more detail in the future, I'm sure, but I do want to mention that this is a very old quote, but it's, you know, I think people are now beginning to understand that all disease begins in the gut, and we're beginning to see more and more information around that. So it begins in the gut, but it also begins in the mouth because of what you're putting into your gut. So thank you for having me here tonight. I do have a book coming out in the spring. So if you want to get on the early list to be notified when that comes out, because I do go more into the anti-inflammatory diet, and incorporating these into your daily routine and how you're going to do that in the anatomy of well-being. Intentional practices to embrace your body's unique design and revitalize your health. You can go to my website and sign up to be notified. And thank you to the Life and Breath Foundation.
Thank you, Dr. Bhanote. Have some questions here that you can hopefully answer. The first question is, while this is an anti-inflammatory diet, it is not specific to sarcoidosis. As an example, for some with hypercalcemia, for example, calcium is contraindicated, and purines too.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. This is an anti-inflammatory diet. So if you notice, even in the anti-inflammatory diet, there is not much dairy there. There's no recommendation for dairy, really, 1 to 2 times a week. So that's a very good way of taking out calcium from the standard American diet. You will have small amounts in your fruits and vegetables, but you know, when they're talking about hypercalcemia, it's like, do you actually have hypercalcemia is what I would question, or is it that it's the potential for hypercalcemia?
Okay, thank you. Next question. I have trouble finding dessert options. Do you have any you would suggest?
Yeah, so when it comes to dessert options, I do have I have on my website a chocolate avocado mousse recipe that I make. I have a rice pudding recipe that I make. Easy ways to do desserts is to take your apple and bake it with some cinnamon. Take a pear, slice it in half, bake it with some cinnamon. I consider fruit more of a dessert.
Great, thank you. Any tips for eating out at restaurants? I stay on track at home, but find it hard to find items at restaurants.
Yeah, so the tips for eating out at restaurants is, 1, look ahead at the menu on the restaurant to kind of prepare yourself so you're not kind of thrown off when you get there. If you're going to a restaurant, say for a work event or a pre-planned dinner event, I always call in advance and let them know that I have a dietary restriction and can the chef make something. And I have never had a problem where a chef wasn't willing to create a meal out of what my dietary restrictions are. And it was often that my meal came out better than everybody else's and they wanted that meal. So definitely look ahead and do not feel like you can't call in advance. Now, depending on what kind of restaurant you're eating at, you also want to ask them to cook in olive oil. If possible, because like I said, many restaurants use the vegetable oils, which are not so good. So ask them to cook your food in olive oil. You can also ask them not to use butter. So it's just really asking for these things is more of it.
Thank you. Another question, benefits of turmeric helpful for sarcoidosis?
Yeah, so turmeric is helpful for lowering inflammation overall. So many people that have sarcoidosis have, you know, it's not just the sarcoidosis presence. They might have joint pains or they might have other kinds of pains. So it's going to help lower that inflammatory cascade, because when you have inflammation, it's inflammation throughout your body. That's what's happening.
Okay, thank you. Next question, do you have any go-to snacks you would recommend? Looking for something I could have when I'm not at home or running errands. I find it hard to find healthy options I can take with me.
Yeah, so I think that recipe that I just showed you to make your own anti-inflammatory protein bites is a good one, because you can make them in advance, put them in the fridge, put them in a little container and have them with you. Nuts and seeds is also a very good one to snack on. Of course, fruits and vegetables. I actually sometimes will just grab a bag of organic mixed greens and snack on that, or, just actual vegetables, instead of a bag of chips, have a bag of those mixed greens. And you'd be surprised because it's more of that snacking habit that you're trying to fulfill than hunger.
Interesting. Thank you. Next question. I'm unable to find flaxseed and chia seeds without calcium. No extra calcium due to hypercalcemia.
Yeah, well, they're going to be probably inherent in calcium. And so I think this is something more on a broader scale to discuss the hypercalcemia that is being informed to patients, because then they're running out of things to eat. So I would want to see, when I work with my clients, I want to see their actual blood levels of what the hypercalcemia is, and where also their entire diet is, what is contributing to the inflammation, because there's things that are making that sarcoidosis create higher calcium levels. So it's not a one and done. So not quite an easy question to answer.
Okay, thank you. Next question. There are so many types of olive oil. Which do you recommend? Will any olive oil work?
Yeah, so olive oil, you want to have unrefined olive oil, cold pressed. Generally, if you can get like one from a foreign country, like Spain, or I usually get mine like not from Spain, but it's like made in Spain. But look for cold pressed and unrefined.
Okay, great, thank you. Any food specific for lungs, pulmonary sarcoidosis?
Well, when you're looking at foods, you're looking to lower inflammation in your entire body. It's not going to be specific just for the lungs. And that's what I think is maybe not the message that is being understood. When you have inflammation, it's a systemic problem. It's not it might be localized, that you have sarcoidosis localized to your lungs, but the inflammatory cytokines and inflammatory markers that are being released are running through your entire body. So what you want to do is focus on those foods that are going to lower inflammation for your entire body.
Great, thank you. Next question. What is your take on juicing your vegetables?
Yeah, so it depends. Okay, so juicing, you will remove the fiber from your vegetables. So fiber, as I mentioned earlier, is a way to help remove toxins from your body and to just move things better through your body. So I prefer smoothies over juicing, and that's kind of what I showed you. Is I was using the whole vegetable when I was making my smoothie.
Okay, thank you. Last question. Sarcoidosis produces its own vitamin D, leading to hypercalcemia. It's a common condition in sarcoidosis. I guess it's more of a statement. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that's why when it comes to any supplements, this is something that should be very closely monitored with your physician. And when you're taking them, like, don't just pick up whatever you think. And if your physician tells you to go get a multivitamin to cover something, you want to ask for a little bit more information, because I find that my patients are on terrible versions of supplements. So you really want to work with a physician who understands supplements. If your physician does not understand them, get one that in addition to your other physician to help you.
Okay, so I guess we're coming up to 8 o'clock. Unless there's other questions, I'd like to thank Dr. Bhanote for answering the questions and providing very valuable information regarding the diet. And want to also remind everybody this is being taped. So if there's additional information you want to jot down, you can always find us on the website to go through the presentation again. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We do this every month, and you stay alert for the next talk.
Thank you.